Folks, Bet Online is your number one, not number two, source for online betting in the year 2025 and the world's most trusted betting platform. You could be a noob. You could be a seasoned vet. Either way, Bet Online is the ultimate game day companion. There, and only there, you can hang out with the largest selection of odds, live in-game betting, the ability to watch the games as they happen. This is for football, playoffs, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. Bet Online. That's the spot. They'll take you from touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks and back again. Bet Online has you covered while you cover every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. Welcome, everybody, to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I am Dan Besbris. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the program because today we are doing our first week in review show in a number of weeks. It's been a trying month out here on the Besbris home front between the fires and the influenza. And so I certainly do apologize that we haven't gotten our normal weekly review shows out to you guys, but we got one today. So pretty much had to rebuild this bad boy, tear it down to the studs and rebuild it. But it's not going to be a problem. Everything's under control. You guys basically know how this goes. Follow at Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky and Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. Again, like, rate, and subscribe. Please subscribe. You got to go do it. It's important. You're doing it now, right? You're doing it. As we're talking, you're doing it. And now let's go through every single thing that's happened over the last basically like 2 weeks because we haven't done this in forever, starting with the injury replacement board. And I must insist upon you guys not reading too much into the fact that Amen Thompson is on this board. The injury replacement board, for about the 9,000th time, I don't know how many times I can say it, but it's apparently this many, is not a slight on anybody's actual ability. The reason that Amen Thompson has 3 carats on this injury board is because he went from being a filler-level guy when the Rockets had their entire starting 5 to being basically like a top 30 player when Jabari Smith Jr. went down. It took one injury. That was all it took, but he went lunging forward. And the thing is, when the Rockets were fully healthy, Amen Thompson was not an everyday start-level guy. I wish he was. We drafted him everywhere. Talked about him 1,000 times during the run-up to the season, but he wasn't. 2 carats, Daniel Gafford, with Derek Lively out forever. 2 carats for Robert Williams, but when he's out, on top of DeAndre Ayton being out, then it's 2 carats for, you guessed it, Donovan Clingan. And I'm leaving Goga Bitadze with 2 carats because we haven't seen what he's going to look like with Franz Wagner back and Paolo Banchero also back now for whatever it is, a couple of weeks. Oh, you try to do a podcast and then right in the middle you get word that the Hornets are resting everybody. Can't risk winning against Portland. God, the tanking, man. NBA's got to do something about that. 1 carat guys on the injury replacement board. Malik Beasley out in Detroit. Kelly Oubre Jr. in Philadelphia. That's with Joel Embiid out. Ayo Dosunmu with Kobe White on the shelf. Gershon Yabusele. This is with both Embiid and Drummond out. If it's just Embiid, I don't have the stones to play Yabusele. Benedict Mathurin in Indiana is a 0 carats guy, has been for a while. Aaron Nesmith, it's looking more and more like that dude's just never going to play this year. Nick Smith Jr. in Charlotte, who actually should have a pretty damn good ball game today because he's in. But LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Trey Mann, Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's out for the year. Grant Williams is out for the year. These guys are all out. It's going to be like Nick Smith and Mark Williams. That's it. That's the whole team right now. Is Cody Martin playing? And Cody Martin. Holy crapinski. Noah Clowney is a 0 carat guy in Brooklyn, as is Zaire Williams, and that is your injury replacement board. It's not that bad right now, you might have noticed. Also, I'm trying to be a bit more discerning because there's some guys that are like kind of okay because of injury, but not good enough to even really be considered. Let's get into the ads because we've had a crap ton of new ads since the last time we've done one of these week in review episodes. The last time we did one Scoot Henderson was just being called a pickup. Russell Westbrook was only being called a pickup for, I think, a second time or a third time at that point. So here are the repeat offenders. Russ now is on here for a fourth consecutive weekly review show. He'll move just onto the you win board when they hit 5 appearances. Andrew Nemhard, if you're punting threes, is on the ads board. Scoot Henderson is definitely on the ads board. I know he's coming off a disastrous foul-out game last time around, but Portland's resting some folks. Charlotte's resting everybody. I would think that the Blazers can put up a whole crap ton of points in this one, and you've also got to assume that Scoot is going to play a role in that. So he's back on there again. Jeremy Sohan, back off the injured report for the first time in a while, and he just, he can't stay healthy long enough to get into the, you're going to be on the ads board this many weeks in a row. So he's in there, especially if you're punting free throws. I mean, same story for Russell Westbrook, but he's been an easier call. Cason Wallace, if you're punting points, has appeared on here 2 times. And then now we get into the 6 brand new names we've never talked about on this show. Well, we've talked about on this show. We've just never discussed them in the context of the true ads board. Name number 1 is Onyeka Okongwu. When he moved into the starting 5, this one became a no-brainer. He was already playing well off the bench, but we've seen that before from Okongwu, where he might have a week where he plays better and then a week where he plays worse, and he and Clint Capella were kind of trading off who gets to be the dude. Well, Okongwu's the dude now. He's the guy. He's probably going to go roll along at a top 65 clip or better would be my assessment. This is a really big win to get, no matter how you ended up with him. Huge victory there and a big win. Nick Richards is another name on the board. I don't think he's going to be quite as good as Okongwu. Number 1, Okongwu is a better foul shooter. Number 2, he's just generally a better scorer than Richards. Nick is probably the superior rebounder. Doesn't block that many shots. And that's the thing that I wanted to kind of point to from earlier in the year. Richards was blocking shots at a higher clip than we were accustomed to. And it felt like it was one of those things you could say, oh yeah, maybe he's just sort of gotten better at this. But I don't think so. Looking at last year, he was pretty much the starter for Charlotte all season long, and he only averaged 1.1 blocks in 26 minutes. That's not very many for a true center. He was at 1.2 in 21 minutes for Charlotte this year, but he's at 0.7, this is limited sample size, in his 3 games with the Phoenix Suns in 24 minutes a game. My expectation is that if he gets up to about 26 minutes, you're probably looking at something similar to what he did in Charlotte last year, which was 10 and 8 with a block. Not disastrous at the free throw line. Very good field goal percent. And the hope for Richards is that he could push a little higher than that. A little higher, because he's going to be on a team that gets him open so often. So you'd hope for maybe more offensive rebounds or just maybe more rebounds in general. But hope doth not a fantasy game make. So I think Nick Richards probably hovers somewhere in the 100 range, and you hope for a little bit better. Khalil Ware is on the board. He's been incredible lately. Got that when Bam Adebayo was out, he played 30-some-odd minutes, and we all went, ooh. And he looked like he was going to be the greatest injury replacement player on earth. And then Eric Spoelstra was like, you know what? Screw this. You go play with Bam Adebayo. And they're doing it. And he's putting up huge lines. And I talked about it on our show within the last 24 hours. Where is a big unknown? Or a complete unknown. And that makes him interesting because we don't really, even the mighty, the wizard. No way. No one gets in to see the wizard. So because there's an unknown here with Khalil Ware, he can be sold for likely more than what he's going to do. Don't get me wrong. I love him, and I'd be perfectly happy just having him on my fantasy team. But if there's a way to take a guy like Ware and flip him for like a top 60, top 65, just regular season, cruising, reliable kind of name, I'm doing it. 100 times out of 100, I'm doing it. If someone offers me like a top 85 guy for where, I may or may not do it. That's probably closer to the cut line. But like, if someone offered me Michael Porter Jr., I'd probably just take it. If someone offered me Austin Reeves, or frankly his teammate Bam Adebayo, or Ivica Zubats, or OG Anunoby, or Malik Monk, or Lauri Markkanen, or Chris Paul, or Miles Bridges, or do I want to go as far down as CJ McCollum and Mikal Bridges? I mean, maybe. I'd probably take those guys because it's just the easy path. It's not exciting. I'm fully aware that I'm the fantasy analyst that doesn't like excitement. Listen, I've got irritable bowel syndrome. I can't handle excitement. Jaden McDaniels is on the list, and this one I know we're going to regret it, but he's been really, really good lately. He's pushed himself up to number 101 in 9-cat on the year. He's been shooting well, which is a number that we know is not going to hold. But more than anything, he's just been more involved. Instead of 8.5 shots a game, he's up over 10. And it's not a huge thing that needs to change for McDaniels to really click. It's just he has to be part of what the Wolves are doing every single night. And historically, that happens for about 3 or 4 games in a row, and then it stops happening for a dozen games. And then it happens for 3 or 4 games, and then it stops for 10. This one, I don't want to say that it feels different. It is a little bit longer, though. Of the names I've listed, he is definitely the one that I'm least confident in so far. But if you want to go to someone who I'm even lower confidence in, it would be Lonzo Ball, who I like and whose fantasy game translates to 9-cat really well because he's a high assist-to-turnover guy who gets steals and threes and like sometimes enough assists for that assist-to-turnover ratio to be a relevant number, sometimes not. The reason I kind of like Lonzo more right now is that Kobe White is out at least a week, and we also know that the Bulls are trying to move off of high-usage guys, veterans, with the trade deadline approaching and just 2 weeks away. But also, Lonzo Ball's number 95 over the last month, on the shoulders of steals, admittedly, and threes. He's kind of a 2-trick pony right now. But if any of the pony tricks, if any of this turns into a third trick, does the pony do dressage? That's how things really start to fall into place. Does he take an extra shot per game? Does he get an extra assist? Do the Bulls move off of Zach LaVine or Kobe White or Nikola Vucevic? And does that open things up for some of these other guys, like an Ayo Dosunmu, who's on a different board that we'll talk about in a little bit? And another guy that I've liked a lot lately is Nikola Jovic, not to be confused with the number 1 player in all of fantasy basketball. Jovic is just outside the top 100 over the last month. The 43% shooting is the little thing that's holding him back, but you got to like the 12, 4, and 4 with 91% at the foul line, a little less than a steal and about half a block. He just does a little bit of everything, which again, if you're looking for something to sort of translate over into fantasy value, the guys that do a little bit of a lot of things, it tends to be easier for those dudes to post 9 category value. And for Jovic, over the last 3 weeks, instead of the last month, where he's actually taken an extra shot and a half per game, he's at 13.5, 4, and 4, and he's inside the top 100. Just that little boost is all it took. So of all these new names, 6 new names, the ones that I like the most, Okongwu to me is the safest, easiest of all of them. Then Khalil Ware, you're shooting for the moon. Then Nick Richards. Then you probably go Jovic, then Jaden McDaniels, then Lonzo Ball. Before we get to the updates on prior ads, I want to let you guys know about our other incredible partner, and that is UnderdogFantasy.com. So exciting to have them aboard with us here. Okay, so here's the thing. They sent me this really cool promo video that I want to run in the background while we're doing our show. And now, can I do it? Let's see here. Do I have the technological know-how to make this thing run while I'm talking? There we go. There's Underdog. All right, so that's going to run for like 30 seconds in the background. It's just showing you guys on YouTube. You got these different projections that pop up every day, and you just create a lineup of them. Do you think Devin Booker is going to be higher or lower than 2.5 3-pointers? Do you think LaMelo Ball is going to score more or less than 20 whatever points per game in this upcoming game? And so if you're particularly good at DFS, but you don't like the idea of having to mix and match all those different prices to fit into your DFS budget, this is a way to just take your one or two favorites, put them into a lineup on Underdog Fantasy, pick them, and turn that into cash. Triple your money. And if you sign up right now with our buddies at UnderdogFantasy.com, use promo code OLDMAN, OLDMAN, or just click on the link in the show description. That's our referral link. Let them know who sent you. You can also get a $1,000 deposit match bonus, up to 50% on that. So if you put in $2,000, they'll give you an extra $1,000. Anything up to that. If you put in 100, they'll give you 50, so on and so forth. And a free play on your first card. It's Patrick Mahomes over half a yard right now, by the way. So you throw that in, meaning right now, if you wanted to do a 2-player card, that's fine. Use your free play and one other, and you can basically 3x your bet amount. Or you could go bigger, which is what we did together on a show a couple days ago. And I put in Patrick Mahomes and 2 other things, and I was trying to 5x my joint. I biffed it because DeMar DeRozan scored like 1.5 too many points. I should have gone point, rebound, assist instead because I knew he was going to be tired, but the turd scored enough. Anyway, check out our buddies at UnderdogFantasy.com. They are awesome. It's so cool to have them aboard. It's a company that I've almost worked with in the past a few times, so finally getting to do that, that's pretty sweet. Again, referral link in the show description or use promo code OLDMAN. Updates on some guys that were on the ads board prior. And again, we're 3 weeks, so there's extra names here. Zach Edey had been on the ads board for about 3 or 4 weeks in a row. I think he's droppable, as is Malcolm Brogdon. Now, the problem with Brogdon is that this is going to be a back and forth thing all season long. If he gets healthy, he'll go back on the ads board. And if he lasts there for a couple of weeks, he'll get an extra asterisk, but then he's going to end up back on the drop board again because he'll get hurt again. Dante DiVincenzo, he got hurt shortly after he was on our ads board for a second time. I'm going to try to hold him. The report that just came out today on Dante is that he's going to miss at least 3 more weeks to take it through the All-Star breaks. Then you get a freebie on a 4th week. I would try to hang on. He was playing really well before this toe injury. I'm going to give Trace Jackson-Davis just a little bit longer. This one is definitely not a guarantee. He's had a couple of absolutely terrible games mixed in there over the last week or so. So he's close to being moved down to the worry board. And Yves Missy is in the worry board. Missy was so good for so long, but with Zion back, it just doesn't look like there's enough stuff for him. So I am worried, but I'm not doing anything just yet on that front. Here's the list of all the guys that have been on the ads board for at least 5 weeks, with, of course, some of them on other boards as well. Christian Brown and Dyson Daniels and Bilal Coulibaly were there starting on week number 1. Tari Eason, Shaden Sharp were there on week 2. Oh, Alex Sarr was week 2. Those other 3 were week 3. Week 5 was DeAndre Hunter. Andrew Wiggins was week 6. Mark Williams, Herb Jones, Chris Middleton, Yves Missy were week 7. And Malik Monk, remember when he took over for DeMar DeRozan? That was week 9. All right, now we get into more of the kind of tough decisions, guys. This is the holds board. It's a short one. Again, because of the layoff between these weekly shows, I found it more difficult to really get into the weeds on like who's a hold, who's a drop, whatever. I wanted to be a little bit more definitive. So Naz Reid, an easy hold right now. Bobby Portis is a hold. He was a sell for a while, but I think if you hold on, you'll probably get another little run. And Tyus Jones is a hold. He's been not great lately, but good enough in that he's had some down ball games mixed in there. I don't even know. He might not even be inside the top 200 over the last, month or so. But if you look at his game log, you can see that he's kind of inching closer to being fantasy relevant. And I'm also just very curious what happens with Phoenix as it relates to Bradley Beal and Jimmy Butler, etc. But like for Tyus, he's got a couple of 10 assist games over this stretch. He's really now trying to do his best Chris Paul impersonation. And like, frankly, over the last 4 ball games, I know he's not scoring at all, but 31 assists and 6 steals over that stretch. You're not going to find that on the wire, so he's a hold. 2 names on the worry board are Clint Capella, because he's now the backup to the aforementioned Onyeka Okongwu. And, like, he's definitely a drop in straight 9 cat. If you're punting free throws, you can probably hang on a little bit longer. Jonas Valanciunas, I've called him the softest hold in all of fantasy basketball. I think you can probably just abandon ship on JV. There's like, the only reason to hang on to Valanciunas at this point is if you think he gets traded someplace where he gets an extra 3 or 4 minutes a ball game. I just have a lot of trouble envisioning such a place. A good team is going to be the only team that trades for JV. Somebody that just needs a bruising center for 18 to 20 minutes. Like, if he went to the Lakers, he'd get run off the court by anybody who's not the biggest lumbering ox in the NBA. There's like 4 players out there that you can think of. Oh, this is the guy they're going to want to play AD next to Valanciunas for. But you know damn well the Lakers would rather bring in Robert Williams for his defense. They don't need JV to space the floor. They don't need JV's hook shot. They need somebody that can actually help defend. I'm sure they'd rather, I'm seeing Twitter talking a lot about spending up and getting like a Walker Kessler or a Nikola Vucevic. There was a weird movie. This is me doing my YouTube deep dive where they were talking about how Vooch and Jokic pronounce their first names differently, even though they're technically the same. Nikola or Nikola? Nikola Jokic, Nikola Vucevic. That, I believe, is what the YouTube rabbit hole led me down. And that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, I guess they do say them a little bit different. And anyway, I don't see JV getting to 22, 23 minutes anywhere else. The JV appeal this year was in Washington. The thought process was, well, maybe he gets like 23, 24 minutes with the Wizards as an opportunity to showcase himself, build up some value. Nope. I feel like my computer is chunking along right now. We're going to try to get through this thing in the next few minutes so we don't lose everything. Time to cut board. It looks like Ben Simmons got misaligned here. That's going to drive me crazy, but I'm going to leave it. Derek Lively's a cut because he's likely not coming back until the last 2 weeks of the season, if that. Brandon Miller is a cut. He's out for the year. Dennis Schroeder is a cut because he's terrible. He has been for weeks now, but we haven't done a show where we actually got him on the cut board because, again, we've been gone for a while. Jabari Smith Jr., he's a cut. Although pretty soon he's going to get back into the you could consider stashing situation, but not yet. He's not that good. Grady Dick is a cut, and Ben Simmons is a cut. And I don't think any of these actually need explanation. They're all quite cut and dry. Hey-oh. Dry and then cut. The watch list. This is one of my favorite parts of these shows right now because these are the names where I'm like, something could click here. Tumani Kamara, first name on the watch list. He's looked really interesting for the Blazers kind of throughout the year. Not good enough to play every single day. Where's he at if we look for the entire season? Tumani is number 132. He's in the filler zone, but he's at 8.5 shots a game. And it's one of those very obvious, like, oh, he's got the minutes, but it's in very Bilal-ish, interestingly. He and Bilal Coulibaly, who are, frankly, ranked within, like, 10 slots of one another, their fantasy games are strikingly similar. Coulibaly is ahead by 2.5 points. Kamara by half a rebound. Coulibaly by 1 assist. Their steals and blocks are almost exactly the same. Kamara by 1 percentage point from the field. And Bilal by 3.5 percentage points at the free throw line. They're the same fantasy line. I have the same thought on both of these guys, which is get a high usage guy out of the way, turn him loose, and they could be really interesting. Until then, however, filler. Mike Conley's a player to watch with Dante DiVincenzo out. He wasn't very good the first couple of games, but then he popped off in the last one. Let's see if he can do it again. Derrick Jones Jr. is on a serious heater right now. He went huge when Harden, Norm, and Kawhi all sat out at the same time, and then he doubled down on that when all those dudes were back. Admittedly, it was against the Wizards. That's not an NBA-level team, so watch list. Bruce Brown out in Toronto. He's going to need a big minutes bump if I'm really going to buy in, but his numbers have looked pretty good lately in a pretty clearly unsustainable pace that he's on right now. I would be looking for Bruce Brown to get traded to some team that wants to play him 30 minutes a game. So maybe more of a guy to watch for potential stash value. Isaiah Collier in Utah. They've brought the guards back, although Utah just ruled out John Collins again. So who knows? Oh, John Morant and Santi Aldama got ruled out as well. These things are all going to have happened by the time you watch this show. So pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Second Wizard of Oz reference in one episode. That's a bad record to set. Bogdan Bogdanovic is a name on the watch list. Every once in a while, he has a good ball game, and he can't follow it up. I need to see 2 or 3 good ones in a row, and we haven't yet. Bub Carrington, this is the same kind of thing with the Wizards. Like, he's more of a trade deadline kind of name. Do you think a bunch of guys get out of his way? And Asar Thompson, you guys, I think, have a pretty good idea of how I feel about Thompson. I pretty firmly believe that he's a guy you try to sell when he has a good ball game because the Pistons are not tanking. They're playing it out at this point. They're a playoff team right now. So they're not going to just shovel extra stuff onto Asar since he can't shoot yet. What he does well. But they need spacing a lot of the time. Not every time, but a lot of the time. And so it just sort of ices him out from getting more minutes than he's got right now. And here's the assorted stashes board, just in case you didn't watch the entire stash show that I did of my names. We're going to do a whole bunch of stash episodes of guests coming up here. This is the Dan Biss list. Ayo Dosunmu, Denny Avdia, Alex Sarr, and Bilal Coulibaly are kind of my top guys. The Robert Williams, Donovan Clingan combo is the next rung down. Jalen Smith is in there as well. And then the third rung down is Noah Clowney, who, again, I don't really fully trust at this point. And frankly, you could take him off this board, and I'd be totally fine with that. But the other ones are guys, especially the top 4, that you can pretty much roster head-to-head. You can just play those guys and take the good with the bad leading up to the deadline. Robert Williams is a tough one because he's going to sit every back-to-back in Portland. I don't know that he would sit every back-to-back if he got traded to a contender that's trying to use him to win basketball games. But then we also kind of know Donovan Clingan is the ultimate in like polar left, polar right. He's about to have a big game on Friday as of the time of us recording this podcast because Ayton and Robert Williams are each out. But when one of those guys is in, Clingan is generally kind of capped off. When Ayton's in, he's capped at like 16, 17 minutes. When Time Lord is in, he's capped at 20 some odd. So you're getting a lot of these games where he's hurt, where he's not playing very much, where he's doing very little. And so you're trying to stomach holding on to Clingan, who might not even be a guy who gets a big bump at the deadline. He might be a silly season guy. But at the same time, we also kind of know that come silly season, Donovan Clingan's going to be playing high 20s in minutes. He's a shot blocking, rebounding extraordinaire. He's a mountain. He's twice the size of a normal human being. Just get him out there for 26, 27 minutes. You're going to get double-digit rebounds, and you're going to get over 2 blocks per game. He's going to be a silly season winner, but how long can you sit on that? I don't have an answer to that question. It's rhetorical. Only you know. All right. Again, I can see that my computer is hanging on by a thread. I don't know why. I'm not running that many things right now. But in the interest of making sure that we get this podcast in the can, let's wrap it up. Hit that subscribe button. You have to. If you sat through the whole show, now you have to subscribe. Follow on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. Make sure to follow on social because we do a lot of stuff over there. And please, if you have a moment, check out our partners from BetOnline, Underdog Fantasy. Check out our trade deadline live show. That page is set up. I would love it if you guys could give it a pre-like. We're over 600, and I would love to get us to 750. That's our adjusted down target on that. And also in the show description is a link to the elementary school that burned down in the Palisades that my son attended, and my other son was going to be starting next year. My kids are at a different school now. All these kids are beyond freaked out. The Palisades Charter Elementary Fire Recovery Fund. That link is in the show description. If you have $1.50, whatever, everything matters as they try to rebuild the school, what the teachers have, all the stuff in the classrooms, every little bit does indeed count. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for subscribing. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Hit that 5-star review if you can on the way out as well. I'm Dan, and I'll see you guys soon.